Welcome to the Persuasive Mindset, your podcast guide to mastering the art of persuasion by exploring its role across diverse fields through in-depth conversations with experts. I am your host, Dr. Serena Mate de Londra, and this episode is part of our series called The Story Behind. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Diego Taboada, who is the Director for French-speaking Switzerland and Senior Fellow at Avenir Suisse, which is an independent, free market think tank founded in 2000, working at the intersection of academia, politics, media, and business to inform and help shape Swiss public policy. Born and raised in Geneva, Taboada studied political science at the University of Geneva before completing his master's degree in political economy at the London School of Economics. From his early years co-founding the online media platform called Liber-thé to his current role leading the French-speaking operations at Avenir Suisse, his work has been shaped by the mindset that a good idea is only as powerful as the moment, the audience it reaches, and the patience behind it. By listening to this conversation, you will gain insights into how Avenir Suisse operates across Switzerland's linguistic regions and distinct political cultures. Why credibility, originality, and timing are the three pillars of effective policy communication, what it takes to advocate for a reform proposal over many years and the mindset required to sustain that effort, what studying at the LSE and building Liber-thé has taught him about communication strategy and fundraising, and much more. And as always, the conversation concludes with personal and career advice for students, early career professionals, and anyone working at the intersection of ideas, politics, and society. Now, let's dive into our conversation with Diego Taboada, and please remember that you can also read the full print interview at persuasivediscourse.com. Enjoy! Thank you very much for deciding to have this conversation with us so we can learn as much as possible about your inspiring work. As we start, I'd like to ask, what is Avenir Suisse?
Thank you for having me. So, Avenir Suisse has been the Switzerland's leading think tank since its foundation. 25 years ago, we had our anniversary last year. Our mission, our objective is to develop free market, classical, liberal, and science-based ideas for the future of Switzerland. Because Avenir Suisse means the future of Switzerland in French. We are independent and not beholden to political interests. And this independence is allowed thanks to a constantly growing numbers of donors, consisting of over 130 companies, individuals, and foundations. And that allows us to really choose the topic we want to work on and really to work independently from all other interests. That's really good. We are a non-profit organization and we provide evidence-based analysis of political issues, but we do not participate in political campaign. I think it's important to note that also in the Swiss context where we have so many political campaigns, public votes, etc. We are a political player, but we do not participate. We don't say we have to vote yes or no, but we still want to have an impact on the political discussion, on the policies discussion. So we're still there, but we are not directly implicated in the political campaign. That's about Avenir Suisse, and I'm the director for the French-speaking part of Switzerland. So I'm kind of in charge of the activities here. I represent the company, I defend our position with different stakeholders. That's really important. We have different stakeholders, not just the media, but also the political and economic representative, as well as of donors. So that's part of my job. What we do, so we are a Swiss company. We have an office in Zurich and Lausanne. So we also are responsible for the content production. So we don't just translate things from German to French or French to German, but we also make sure that the message, what we want to say, the idea we want to share is adapted to the context and specific challenges in this part of the country. Because, yeah, we are Switzerland, it's one country, but also sometimes the issues, the stakes are not the same. And it's really important to be grounded in the region to really understand what's this discussion here, how can we move on in the right direction.
Thank you so much for this comprehensive description. I've also noticed online that Avenir Suisse website is actually represented in multiple languages. For example, I saw it has the version in German, in French, in Italian, and English. And I was just curious, could you please elaborate a little bit about that? How do you figure out which type of research should be placed in which language, and how does that work?
That's a really good question. So most of our work is written originally in German, just because most of our people are in Zurich. So we are 25 FTEs in this organization, and most of them are in Zurich, so they write in German. And then what we want to do is to translate most of this work in French. That's the first priority. But then we do, I would say, 95% of the work is also translated in Italian, because Switzerland is also the Italian part that is really important to us. We don't have office yet there, but we still want to speak and to talk to our Italian-speaking fellows in Switzerland. And English, of course, we are Avenir Suisse. We focus on Swiss political issues, on Swiss context, but we still have a relationship with English for many reasons. One of them because a lot of English-speaking people lives in Switzerland, and I think that people that may be also interested in what's going on in Switzerland. We also have contact with other think tank, other organizations in the world, in Europe. So it's also good to produce some of our work in English. And yeah, I would say 50-60% of what we write is also available in English.
So the physical locations are, as you mentioned, in Zurich and Lausanne. Does that mean that listeners could go and interact with the think tank to attend some events that you organize? Or is it more collaborations with other organizations or media venues?
We do collaborations. We do cooperations. We also organize own events. For example, in Zurich, we hold the brown bag lunches. So we invite an expert to come to speak, someone from the academia mainly, or from the administration, and they speak one topic, and then we have this discussion. We can have also external people that come. In Lausanne, it's not yet the case, but I was thinking of doing kind of the same in Lausanne. We also work a lot with media. Sometimes we participate in panels, we organize events, for example, in Geneva. We co-organize an event on Switzerland-European Union relationship at the Graduate Institute. So you've been there, right?
Yes, I studied
we
there.
organize a seminar every year with the Graduate Institute, with the professor Cédric Dupont, who is really involved with these topics, also with Forhaus, which is another think tank in Switzerland. And we aim at doing some cooperation, because I think we need to join forces and to join energies and ideas. And I think sometimes we like to do that.
How well do you think the think tank is known by the Swiss population?
There's a difference between the French-speaking part and the German-speaking part. I think the German-speaking part has a bigger notoriety, also because it's been founded by people from Zurich. So we have a presence in the French-speaking part of Switzerland since always. But, the ground gravity have been in Germany, also because a lot of our research is published there. We've been changing that along the last 10 years. I think we've been more present in the French-speaking part. I'll give you an example. We did a study on daycare. And what we did this time is we made a Swiss analysis of different situations. And then we said, okay, let's look at exactly what's happening in the French-speaking part of Sweden, because there were specific issues. For example, in bureaucracy, we realized that it was overregulated in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. And we said, okay, let's see what's happening there. And on focusing on the situation here, we managed to, I think, to spike interest in the media here in the French-speaking part. So we've been working on that. And then I think we have three main audience. The first is the politics and administration, because at the end of the day, our objective is to have an impact on policies. And if you want to have an impact on policies, you need to have a contact and to have an impact on the political discussion. And political discussion are made mainly by the administration and the politicians. So that's our first audience. Second is, of course, the media, because the media shape the public debate. And we want to engage in public debate, in political discussion for Switzerland. And we work a lot with media. I think that's really a good partner for us. And last but not least, for the business representative general, because we are a think tank, we do research, but we really want to be on the ground. We really want to have, boots on the ground to understand what's really happening in the real world, not just in the academia. And for that, we need to be close to the reality, and the reality is made up in business, people working day to day, and I think that's really important. And also because we are a foundation and we run on private support, because we are independent, we are not supported by the government. So we have this structure that allows us to be also close from the business. So we have politicians, media and business general.
And your work sounds super complex because you've just mentioned so many different elements that you focus on. Could you say whether you have a typical day? And if so, how would it look like?
Typical day. I don't have a typical day. And I think that's part of the job. I love this job because I try to meet a lot of people. I try to be close to people to understand, because in a think tank, you deliver something. You say, we have something, we have content, we want to deliver it and we want to reach people. But if you want to deliver content that is important, that is relevant for the discussion, you need to be really aware of what's happening. So I like to read newspaper. I like to feel the political situation, what's important now. I need to listen what's happening, and then we can think. And in my office in Lausanne, we have been developing a lot of communication. What's the best thing to communicate? Stakeholder management. How can we reach out to the people? That's what really moves me now. And I also have a lot of media intervention or debates or public intervention. That's something you need to prepare, and that's take a lot of time. And I have a team that are really amazing, and it's really good because they can help me prepare these things. What are the good arguments? How can we, you need to adapt to your audience. Who are you talking to? It's not the same when you go in a political rally and you're here to present something. It's not the same as going to a business meeting on a very technical topic on health policy. That's not the same audience, so you have to adapt your message. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
And for those listeners who are also very active on social media and they put their voice out there, what advice do you have to them when it comes to clear communication? Like, how do you get ready for some of your public engagements, for example?
Yeah, that's the most important thing. I try to learn from the best, and I think you yourself with your work, it's not just being good, it's a job. You need to learn it. I think that's what I learned. We need to learn how to communicate. I think the most important thing is, what's the story you want to say? What's the key message that you want that people get away with? And then I seek dialogue. I think Switzerland is also good because we manage to seek dialogues also with people that don't have the same ideas, opinions, and you. But that's great, And what's your message? What's the story you want to tell? What's the fact? And then you try to convince them. And then maybe we can think, how can we persuade people? And then I think persuasion is the most important. The good thing about Avenir Suisse is we are working with people that don't just want to write a study or write an analysis because they love, job market policies and they've been studying at the university, and then they say, okay, how can I find a job where I still can do what I love? It's really people that really committed to make Switzerland a better place. So we love Switzerland. We want to analyze his strengths, its weaknesses, and to think, hey, how can we shape policy and develop solutions to prepare the country for future challenges? That's really what drives us, and that's really good. And then, we need to focus on 3 aspects. I think that the most important thing in an organization like ours, and by extension, my role, first, you need to be credible. Credibility is the most important. Because as I said, people may agree or not, or disagree with our reform proposals, but the quality of our analysis is not up to debate. We don't compromise on rigor and quality, and that's really our currency in public debate. I mean, that's the most important thing. We really need to work on evidence-based analysis, data, figures. That's really important. And I think it's more important now than ever because we are in a world with increasingly AI generating content, and that's really good. I don't think it's not good. I think it can help a lot. But credibility as an institution, we represent an institution that has this credibility with politics, but also with the media. That's very valuable. That's the first thing. Second, I think, how do you persuade people? You need to be original. It's no longer enough to simply write papers and think, yeah, people are going to love what we write. I think originality is good, creativity. And again, in a world drawing in information, the creativity in how you communicate is just as important as what you say. And sometimes as analysts or researchers, we think, yeah, I have an amazing idea, amazing analysis, but the problem is nobody will understand what you've been doing because it's too complicated or not good enough for the political context now. So it's useless. That's what I said. Even though you may be a genius and you've done the best piece of work, if you don't communicate with that, it makes no sense. So I give you some example what we did more concrete, so we can discuss about that. For example, last summer we did a study on the Swiss Post. I mean, some reform for the Swiss Post, and we sent a physical postal letter to every member of the parliament. So I mean, or we published also a report on the cost of ESG regulation for SMEs. And what we did, we delivered it printed on seed paper, so we can use this into some plans. And so we also sent a piggy bank on a tour of Switzerland to illustrate potential savings in the public budget. I mean, this part of the world, the creativity, how we frame the thing, the idea, the analysis we have has been really the most important thing of our work now. Not just me, but also in the institution, we've been thinking about that a lot. And maybe the last point, I think it's timing. You have to bring the right analysis, the right idea at the right moment, because even the most powerful idea, the most credible voice, it will fail if it's not the right moment. You know this phrase, there is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. That's the idea of, I think, Victor Hugo, or something like that. And and in policy work, knowing when to push is just as important as knowing what to say. But you don't just need to know that and to acknowledge that, but we need to shift also how you work, because you're surrounded by people that love content, that love the facts, the ideas. But yes, that's really the core of the job. But then we need other people that say, hey, that's the right moment.
And what would you say that then is the mindset of success for a think tank like Avenir Suisse?
Great question. I think first, is patience. You need to be patient. It's not just about waiting that something passes, but you need to understand that the gap between an idea, a good analysis, and maybe the implementation can span a lot of years. And more in Switzerland, where it is well known because it takes a lot of time. But I think that's a great thing, that it takes time because it's discussed, and then when it comes, it comes. I think this stability is a good feature of Switzerland, but nevertheless, we need to be patient. I'll give you also some example from in-house so we can maybe be clear. For example, at Avenir Suisse, we've been advocating for individual taxation for 12 years. Switzerland just recently accepted in 12 years. It's a long time, but if you look at on a century, 10 years is not enough. But when you have this idea or you take this idea, it takes a lot of time. Another example, 3 or 4 years ago, we proposed another idea of a spring cleaning of obsolete laws in parliament. So that the parliament meets and say, okay, let's focus on what is not necessary. And it's only being discussed now in parliament, and I'm not sure it's going to get through, but that's an idea we need to take. Again, the binding the retirement age to life expectancy is still a battle, but I'm sure we'll get there. Another example, maybe more technical, Parliament recently rejected also one of our proposals to allow hospitals and insurers to negotiate quality-based tariffs. So you can pay someone more if the quality is better. It's been refused, but I'm really convinced that it's the future of healthcare. If you want to go in direction value-based healthcare, the quality outcome for patients, that's good. And sometimes this patients fails, and why? Because what I observe in research institutions, not just think tank, but also at universities, or also is what I call a novelty bias. So when a study is published, you have the feeling, okay, the work is done, time to move on to something new. But in reality, the work has just started. When something is out, the real job now is really to accompany the idea over time, build on it, refine it, reframe it, placing it in the right context, and the political landscape evolves. So that's the job. And sometimes say, okay, I did that, and then let's do something new. No, but I mean, you can, but it's not, the job is not all. And then I think one risk we can have, really, if it's really mindset, from a mindset perspective, one risk is that you can have this temptation of cynicism. That's, you follow a topic long years, the arguments, you've been hearing that because you've been following this particular topic for years. So it's coming back, the same arguments, those who are against, those who are in favor. The same arguments goes around in circle. And you have this impression, it never moves. And that's Switzerland, always discussing, never deciding. But if you lose yourself, your enthusiasm for your own idea, you don't have the ownership of one idea. I'm not saying that, but maybe it's something you've been advocating for. And if you lose the enthusiasm or the faith on your own idea, how can you convince anyone else that that's the right idea? If you say, yeah, I know we've been proposing that 5 years ago, that was a great idea, but then, I've lost I've lost everything. And then that's a risk. And then last but not least it's also about mindset. It's, I think, the empathy. What do I mean with empathy? Is, understanding the needs of your audience. It's not the same. It changes. You need really to say, okay, I need to provide a value for this particular person. And again, a politician running for re-election, this person will need some ideas of reform. It's not the same as, specialists working on health hospitals. They are really boots on the ground, down to the earth, and they have not the same needs than the politician, but maybe you can still bring something. But if you come with so inspirational thing, it's not for them, because you say, hey guys, I don't care about, your inspirational thing. And that's it's something about empathy, I would say. And we need to frame differently depending on who is in the room. And that comes with how you communicate. You need to adapt to your audience. What will I say? How will I say it? Even if it's the same core of the message, but still how you bring it, it's not the same.
And I'm curious, how did you prepare yourself for the current job? If you look back at your career trajectory, where did you initially study to get yourself on this track?
When you work in a think tank, there is the research part, really creating things. That's what I've been doing for 4 years. And then progressively, I would say last year, I've been involved in other kind of job in the think tank about exactly how can we reach other people with our ideas. So not the organizational aspect. But I don't think I have a particular journey, but still, I studied abroad. I studied at the London School of Economics. I did my master there. And I think I was really good because I went there. One of my law and economic teacher in high school introduced me to this great intellectual dispute of the 20th century between Keynes and Hayek. What's the role of state in economy? Does the state has to spend money to make the economy running? And more the Hayek, the more skepticism, state intervention. So there was this economical dispute. And then I learned that Keynes was in Cambridge and Hayek was teaching at the LSE. And I said, oh yeah, I'd like to visit some kind of place like that. So I had the opportunity to get there. I studied political economy, which is essentially the application of economic tools to understand the mechanism of politics, collective decision. But I would be honest with you, the curriculum itself, it's the same as in other good university in Switzerland. I would have studied the same in Zurich, in Fribourg, in France, or in Germany. I'm not sure that what we learn is completely different if you compare with other good university. The difference, what I say, I think, is the people. That's easy to say, everyone says that, but on average, your peers are more driven and more ambitious, I would say, on average. There are people, they've made all those work to be there, to study abroad, to be in those universities. So that's good because, it's one of the most international universities in the world. I think half students come from abroad. So that's really good because it is an exposure to different political cultures, different framing of problem. And then you can check your own premises. You have your own ideas, what you think of the world, what are your ideology, your values, and then you meet people that are either the same or completely, and then you can, reflect on yourself. I think that was really good. And second, when I joined Avenir Suisse, I think that was when I really realized serious policy research is not just doing literature reviews, Excel spreadsheet, or code, or even Claude code now. But you need really to understand the context, as I said, the people, the experts. And I think something really good in think tanks is the combination of analytical rigor, because you need to understand what's happening, but also with a clear narrative, a message, what's the story you want to tell. And that's really good. I get to know some of the brightest minds I've ever encountered was really here at Avenir Suisse. It's really good. And then there is this genuinely driven people that really wants to make something good for the country. And that's also what keeps me out going, I would say. And maybe for the Liber-thé.
Yeah, could you
So I
please
co-founded.
pivot into
Yes.
that? Because I'd really love to learn more about why it is that you actually started it. And at the same time, what were like some key lessons you've learned that others can grow from?
I wouldn't consider Liber-thé as a career step. It was more a bet, a bet that I will tell more about that. But with two of my friends, I'm a co-founder, we say, hey, let's try to build something to discuss classical liberal ideas, political ideas. But I still learned a very useful thing with this project, and then I could apply that on my current role because I did that at the same time as my study and my first years at Avenir Suisse. So there was kind of, so I had a project people management also because we had some people working also in this project. Strategic thinking was not just enough to speak about an intellectual or an author, but really, hey, how can we bring our ideas? What can we do? Also, this fundraising, or how can we convince other people to support you? That's really a skill. It's not just about, hey guys, I have a good idea. No, you need really to make people believe in, not in you, but in the project you're having. And yeah, so for us, the thing was, okay, we met with my two, now we are really friends. I mean, I consider them as my friends at events organized by the Young Liberal Party, so a lot of time ago. And we shared an interest for classical liberal ideas and, all these ideas, battle of ideas more broadly, all these ideas in European tradition, values of the Enlightenment, classical liberalism, not just in economy, but general. And then we felt, okay, parties are, necessarily about coalitions, compromises. And we said we had the feeling that there was not enough room for genuine intellectual debates and really the ideas. And I understand because the political parties are something different. And so we said, okay, let's launch a platform for contemporary liberalism. And, from the beginning, was really, how can we communicate? Because it can sound like, something too complex, too niche. But then we said, okay, let's experiment with different formats. So we start with a podcast, like you. We discussed the books, concepts, thinkers. Okay, was good. And then we said, okay, let's try something written. So we built a website, we produced written content. And then we eventually moved into video interview with experts. And each format thought, okay, something different about how ideas are shared. It's not the same communicating ideas in a podcast, in a written article with a story and something like that.
Thank you so much for having this in-depth conversation with us. My last question is, what is your advice to young professionals who are inspired by your work trajectory and would like to follow in your footsteps?
I would say them ask you twice before you want to do to go on my footstep. No, I'm joking. But I mean, I think the first thing is try to stay curious. You can be amazingly passionate about, as I said, job market policies. I know because maybe we talk to people that have been in academia and then want to do some, you're doing your master thesis or your PhD on one field and you really the guy or the girl on this topic and you really want to do your career in this. But I will still encourage you to try to open and do and read, listen to something else to, if you really want to, maybe the best idea for job market policies, maybe something that you've read in another book on history, philosophy, culinary sciences, or something else. I mean, I think that's really important to try to open your chakras, and see something else. Maybe a second point, I would say, young professional or people studying, I think studying abroad, if you can, it's not just about doing an Erasmus and having fun, even though it's part of the thing and it's really good, but you step out of your comfort zone, not just physically or geographically, but also intellectually. And for me, when you meet someone who radically think different like you and say, hey, you come from Switzerland, you live there, but hey, I'm from, I don't know, from Vietnam, I'm from Japan, I'm from Senegal, and that's what I've seen and what I've learned. I think that's really useful to reflect. Also, the culturally differences, that's really good. It's irreplaceable if you can. Do it. Even as a young professional, if you have the possibility to do something new abroad, it's really good. And yeah, I would say, if you're Swiss, you don't need to go abroad. You can go to the German part of Switzerland. And that's really important because, we said, Switzerland is one country, of course, but the Rostigraben, the difference between French-speaking part of Switzerland and the German-speaking part, also the Italian part, it's really a thing. It's not just the language, it's really culture and, the way people think about, if we go back to politics, to the role of the state in a society, solidarity, risk. It's completely different. It's culturally, institutionally, historically different. So if you can understand that, you can learn a lot of things about your own country or the country you live in, even though you're not Swiss, and you really can understand some mechanism of Switzerland, which is, I think, a unique country. And I think even though you love academia, I do love academia. You love reading, analyzing, studying things. Try to go close to the real world. I mean, the real world. Go work in a company, in a ministry, an NGO, or even a hospital. I mean, as I said, if you're interested in health policy, try to work 2 months in a hospital and really to feel when they say there was too much bureaucracy in our hospitals. Maybe if you go there and you do a traineeship there, you can really feel an internship. You can feel what is bureaucracy. That's just an example. And then you see, because policies about, it's not just about what's in our law in the parliament, but has an impact, should have an impact, positive or negative, on people working and the lives of people. And maybe seeing it with your own eyes, then you can, even if you go back to academia, you go back to politics, think tanks, economics, then you have maybe another approach of the priorities and how you think about things, I would say. That's an advice, but I wouldn't say that take my advice as if it was something from, I don't know, an amazing person, because it's just what I think.
Well, thank you for sharing with us what you think and this very inspiring advice, and also for describing your impactful work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Serena. Thank you for having me. And I wish you all the best also with your project, with this persuasive discourse. And I think, as I said, persuasion, communication is and will be always more important in our world. If you want to be successful, if you want to bring your ideas to your works. Thank you for having this project, and I wish you all the best.
And that concludes our conversation for today. If you enjoyed the discussion, please be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with others who might benefit from it. Until next time, be well!